It started with a lie. Not mine, hers. I didn't pretend to be rich. I just didn't mention I was broke. And she pretended she loved me, for who I was, not for what I had, not for the watch on my wrist or the car I drove. But I guess that illusion only lasts so long. We met at a rooftop bar downtown. It was the kind of place where drinks cost more than my weekly groceries. I was only there because my buddy Jake dragged me out, celebrating some crypto win. I wore my best shirt, the one without holes, and I borrowed Jake's Tag Heuer watch. Just for the night. Just for confidence. That's when I saw her. Emily. Blonde hair like sunlight. A laugh that made the whole damn room turn. She looked like money, not tacky, but polished. Effortless. Designer heels, that subtle perfume that smells like old money. And somehow she picked me. We talked all night. She said I had real energy. Said I was different from the guys she usually met, the finance bros and tech douches. I just smiled and played along. Let her assume. She saw the watch. Saw Jake's BMW keys in my hand. Assumed the rest. I should have corrected her. Should have told her I worked 2 part-time jobs just to stay afloat. That my office was a rented desk in a co-working space. But she looked at me like I mattered, like I belonged, and I didn't want that feeling to go away. So I let it ride. Dates turned into weekends. Weekends turned into months. She moved into my apartment, a 1-bedroom I could barely afford, but dressed up with IKEA to look classy. She said it was cozy. Said she liked how humble I was. I laughed, because the truth was uglier. I was broke. Still, I gave her everything. Took her to places I couldn't afford, paid with maxed-out credit cards, borrowed from friends just to keep the illusion going. I told myself I'd make it soon, that the startup I was working on would take off, that she'd never have to know. But lies rot from the inside. And the day she really found out, was the day everything shattered. She had borrowed my laptop to order something. I had forgotten to close the tab, my online banking. She saw the overdraft, the late fees, the bounced rent check. She didn't say anything right away. She just closed the laptop, smiled like nothing happened, kissed me on the cheek. But everything changed. Her kisses got colder, her touch robotic. The sex stopped, the compliments stopped, and slowly, she started spending more time at work, more nights out with her girls. I wasn't stupid. I felt the shift, but I kept hoping, kept believing love could survive a bank statement. I was wrong, so damn wrong. Started subtly, like the way seasons change. Not overnight, but gradually. I wanted to believe it was just stress. Maybe work was overwhelming her. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she just needed space. But deep down, I knew. The woman who once clung to me like I was her whole world now recoiled from my touch like it burned. Conversations that used to last for hours turned into cold silences. The kind that scream louder than words ever could. She stopped asking me about my day. Stopped laughing at my jokes. Her eyes, once soft and curious, now darted past me like I was in the way. She began dressing differently. Tighter clothes, more makeup, heels that screamed attention. And she started going out more. Just drinks with the girls, she'd say with that rehearsed smile. The one that didn't reach her eyes. I'd nod and pretend not to care. Pretend I wasn't lying awake while she came home at 2 a.m. smelling like a cologne I didn't wear. One night I confronted her. Not directly. I didn't have the guts. Instead, I asked how her night was. She shrugged. Said it was fine. I asked if she was okay. She rolled her eyes. Said I was being clingy. That I should trust her. I bit my tongue so hard it bled. I wanted to scream, to ask who he was. But I didn't, because if I said it out loud, it would be real. Then came the turning point. We were supposed to have dinner. I had scraped together enough cash to make her favorite salmon with garlic mashed potatoes and asparagus. It was a small thing, but I needed to feel like I could still make her happy. I lit candles, put on soft music, wore that shirt she once said made me look dangerous. She didn't show. No call, no text, just silence. She walked in at midnight, drunk and glowing, laughing to herself like she had just stepped out of a dream. When she saw the cold food, The melted candles, my bloodshot eyes. She didn't even flinch. She just said, "Oh, I forgot," and went to shower. I sat there at the table, staring at the untouched plates, at the hope that had curdled on the surface of the mashed potatoes. That was the moment it hit me. She didn't forget. She didn't care. The next morning, I found a receipt in her coat pocket. A bar I didn't recognize. 2 drinks. A meal. One man's name on the bill. Jason. I Googled the place. It wasn't a girls' night bar. It was high-end, intimate, the kind of place you take someone when you're trying to impress them. My stomach sank. But I still didn't confront her. Instead, I started watching. Counting. Tracking the lies she didn't even bother to hide anymore. And every day, I felt a part of me die. Jason. That name burned itself into my brain like a brand. It echoed in every silence, rang in every unanswered message, haunted every long night she didn't come home. I became obsessed. Who the hell was Jason? What did he do? What did he have that I didn't? I spiraled not with rage, but with quiet desperation. The kind that makes you sit in the dark, phone in hand, scrolling through social media until your eyes blur, searching for anything that might explain how everything you built could be so easily replaced. I started digging. I found him. Jason Marks. A mid-level executive at a luxury car dealership, judging by his LinkedIn. His profile picture screamed smugness, that "I have money and I know it" smirk, white teeth, tailored suit, Rolex peeking from under his cuff like it had a personality of its own. He looked like every guy she swore she hated. But maybe that was the point. Maybe that was what she really wanted all along. A few days later, I saw it with my own eyes. She was supposed to be working late. I was supposed to be at a networking event, one I didn't even bother attending because I was too far gone to care. Instead, I walked past a downtown hotel just blocks from her office, and there they were, her and Jason. Standing too close. Laughing too loud. His hand on her waist, hers on his chest. She looked up at him with those eyes I thought were mine. I didn't confront them. I just stood there, frozen, like a coward, watching the woman I loved melt into the arms of another man, a man who didn't know what it was like to skip meals to pay rent, who didn't know how many nights I spent lying to her face just to make her smile. And in that moment, I realized it wasn't love that she wanted. It was lifestyle. When she got home later that night, she smelled like his cologne again. She didn't even bother to shower this time. Just collapsed into bed and turned her back to me like I didn't exist. Like I was the stranger in her apartment, though it was my name on the lease, my credit that held it all together. I lay there, wide awake, her breathing steady beside me, and thought, this is it. This is what betrayal looks like. Not the dramatic kind from movies, no slammed doors, no screaming matches. Just slow erosion. Just quiet indifference. Just love dying while one person watches and the other doesn't care. And still, I said nothing. Because I wasn't ready to let go. Not yet. I still had some stupid hope that maybe she'd wake up and remember who we were. Remember the nights we stayed up talking about dreams. Remember the way she used to reach for me in her sleep. But hope is a dangerous thing. It doesn't save you. It just delays the fall. And mine was coming fast. The silence between us became its own language, cold, brittle, final. She didn't need to admit anything. She didn't owe me words anymore, not in her mind. Every night she came home a little later. Every morning she woke up a little more detached. Her eyes didn't even bother pretending anymore. And mine? Mine were heavy from crying in the dark when she couldn't see me. That was the cruelest part, how normal she made it all seem, like our slow collapse was just another Tuesday. I tried to win her back. God, I hate even saying that. I stooped so low I didn't recognize myself. I started cleaning more. Cooking more. Acting upbeat even though every breath hurt. I complimented her. Bought her flowers I couldn't afford. Took her out to a rooftop restaurant where I pretended to enjoy the view while she stared at her phone the whole night. I asked her what was wrong. She said nothing. Why does something always have to be wrong? And I swallowed my suspicion like poison. Then came the credit card statement. I didn't recognize half the charges, designer stores I never stepped foot in, beauty salons she hadn't mentioned, Uber rides across town at hours when she was supposedly asleep beside me. My name was on that card. My debt. She never even asked. She just spent like she was entitled to it. Like my struggling paycheck was her personal playground. When I asked her about it, she didn't deny it. Didn't explain. She just shrugged and said I didn't think it'd matter. You always find a way, don't you? That line hit me harder than any punch. I always find a way? Like I was some magic ATM with a soul. I finally broke. I asked her straight, are you seeing someone else? She didn't even blink. Just looked me dead in the eyes and said, does it matter? And that's when the world collapsed. Not because she confirmed it, but because of how little it mattered to her. Like my heartbreak was some minor inconvenience in her otherwise curated life. She got up, walked to the kitchen, poured herself a glass of wine, and sipped it like we were just discussing weekend plans. Like she didn't just gut me in a sentence. She slept in the same bed that night, back turned. No apologies, no tears. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering when exactly the woman I fell in love with had died, and who the stranger beside me really was. That was the night I started planning my escape. Because sometimes, the only way to reclaim your worth is to walk away from someone who doesn't see it. I didn't leave right away, not because I wanted to stay, but because I needed time. Time to figure out how to break free without collapsing completely. I had tied myself to her in every way. Financially, emotionally, even socially. People knew us as a couple. My family liked her. My friends tolerated her. I had built this illusion around us, and now I had to dismantle it piece by painful piece. So I started watching her. Not out of jealousy anymore. That emotion had rotted into something colder, something numb. I observed her like a stranger. The way she dressed when she thought I wasn't paying attention. The new perfumes, the sudden interest in luxury skincare, the frequent packages she claimed were gifts from work. And then the final crack in the mirror. I found a second phone, buried at the bottom of her gym bag, the one she never let me touch. It wasn't even password protected. She didn't bother because she thought I was too stupid or too scared to dig that deep. But I opened it, and there he was, Jason. Dozens of messages, pictures, voice notes, a whole second relationship unfolding in front of me like some grotesque love story I never auditioned for. She called him babe, told him she missed him, sent selfies from our apartment while I was at work. And the worst part? She told him she was only with me for stability, that I was comfortable, like I was some worn-out couch she could lounge on until something better came along. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the phone. I didn't wake her up and confront her. I just sat there, alone in the kitchen at 3 a.m., staring at the screen, feeling every ounce of dignity I had left leak out of me like blood from a wound. That night, I started the process. I opened a secret bank account, changed the password to my main email, backed up all my files, made copies of important documents, called my landlord to discuss lease options. Quiet steps, silent moves. I wanted out, but I wanted out smart. I even started sleeping on the couch. Told her it was because of my back. She didn't care enough to question it. If anything, she seemed relieved. The space between us grew like a canyon. And still, she didn't notice. Or maybe she did and didn't care. Maybe she thought I'd just accept it forever, that I'd keep being her safety net while she played house with someone else. But something in me had snapped. I had loved her, completely, blindly, sacrificially, and now all I felt was the quiet resolve of someone who knew they were walking away. Not in anger, but in finality. Because when love dies, it doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just walks out the door and never looks back. In the mornings, I would watch her sleep. Not out of affection anymore, but from a place of mourning. I watched her face, peaceful, oblivious, and tried to remember the last time I saw it light up just for me. Tried to remember when her smile didn't feel like a transaction. It was strange, sitting next to someone who was once your whole world and feeling absolutely nothing. No warmth, no hate, just a hollow quiet. I had become invisible in my own life, a ghost passing through the apartment we used to laugh in, kiss in, dream in. Now it felt like a waiting room, cold, colorless, temporary. Every object reminded me of how much I gave. That coffee machine she insisted we needed, even though I couldn't afford it. The throw pillows she picked out with Jason's favorite color. I found that out in one of their messages. My money, my time, my trust. All spent trying to build a life for someone who had already started building a new one without me. One Thursday evening, she came home earlier than usual. She was in a good mood, humming some pop song under her breath. She looked radiant. That bothered me more than anything. She was glowing, not because of anything I had done, but because someone else was feeding her attention, validation, luxury. She kissed me on the cheek absent-mindedly, called me Han, and went straight to the bedroom. I stared at the door after it shut, my face still stinging from the false affection. That night, I watched her get dressed for drinks with the girls. Tight black dress, red lipstick, expensive heels. I asked her which friends she was meeting. She gave me a name I recognized. A girl she hadn't spoken to in months. I nodded, said, "Have fun." She blew me a kiss and left. And I knew in that moment she wasn't coming home alone. She hadn't for weeks. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. I already had screenshots, messages, timestamps. I had everything. I just needed the right moment. The next morning, while she was still asleep, I emailed everything to myself and a trusted friend. Not for revenge, for protection. If things got messy, I wanted proof. I also drafted my letter. Not a dramatic goodbye, not some bitter manifesto. Just the truth. Raw. Undeniable. Final. I poured out every lie she told, every sacrifice I made, every moment I doubted myself because of her. And I ended it with one sentence: "I loved you with everything I had, but now I'm finally loving myself enough to leave." The plan was set. I just had to wait for her next night out. One last lie. One last betrayal. And then I would be gone. It was almost too perfect how the final night unfolded. She was glowing again, walking around the apartment like she lived in a movie. She played music on her phone, something upbeat, something that didn't match the heaviness in the air between us. She barely acknowledged me. Just floated from room to room, humming, applying makeup, curling her hair. She looked stunning. I won't lie. She always had this ability to look untouchable when she wanted, sharp, polished, expensive. The kind of beauty that announces itself before she even enters the room. And it killed me to know it had never really been for me. As she sprayed perfume on her neck, that same scent Jason mentioned in one of his messages, I sat on the couch, pretending to scroll through my phone. My heart wasn't racing. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't even angry. I was calm. Too calm. Like someone who had already mourned and buried what needed to die. She told me she wouldn't be late. She even winked, like some caricature of affection, and said, "Don't wait up, babe." I almost laughed. Almost. I just nodded and she left. The sound of her heels clicking down the hallway was the last sound she would ever make in that space as someone who had me. The moment the door shut, I moved. I already had my bags packed, hidden in the coat closet. One duffel. One suitcase. That's all I was taking. The rest, the furniture, the TV, the overpriced decor she insisted on, she could keep it. Let it remind her of the life she burned through like gasoline. I placed the letter on the bed right next to her pillow. She'd find it when she came home, if she even came home. Part of me hoped she wouldn't. That she'd go to Jason's, sleep in his sheets, wake up in his arms. Let her betrayal be complete. I didn't want closure anymore. I didn't want an apology or explanation. I just wanted out. Clean. I left my keys on the kitchen counter. Took one last look around. That apartment held so many memories, both beautiful and cruel. I saw ghosts in every corner. The first night we moved in, when we ate takeout on the floor. The way she used to dance barefoot in the kitchen. The time I found her crying over her job and I held her for hours. All of it lies now. Twisted by the knowledge that love to her was nothing more than comfort until something shinier came along. I walked out. Down the stairs. Out into the night air that smelled like rain and freedom. And as I stepped into the cab, I felt something I hadn't in months. Peace. Because sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is walk away from the person they thought they couldn't live without. I stayed with Jake for the first week. He didn't ask too many questions, just gave me a spare key, a place to sleep, and silence when I needed it. That kind of loyalty is rare. He didn't say, "I told you so," even though he had every right. Jake never liked Emily. Said there was something too polished, too curated about her. I thought he was just being cynical. Turns out he was right. The first few days were a blur. I barely ate. Barely slept. I walked around the city like a ghost, watching strangers live their lives while mine was crumbling in slow motion. I checked my phone obsessively, not because I wanted to hear from her, but because I expected it. The explosion. The rage. The guilt trip. But nothing came. Not the first night. Not the second. Nothing. It wasn't until day 4 that she finally called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Her voice was frantic, confused, like someone who just woke up to find the house on fire. "Where are you? What the hell is this? Why would you do this to me?" To her. As if I was the one who shattered everything. As if walking away from betrayal was some form of betrayal in itself. She called again. And again. Then the texts came. At first angry, then sad, then desperate. She said she was sorry. Said she didn't mean for things to go this far. Said it wasn't serious with Jason. That it was just a phase, a mistake, a moment of weakness. But you don't accidentally sleep with someone for weeks. You don't accidentally build a secret life on top of a loyal one. And you don't accidentally spend someone else's money while pretending to love them. I didn't reply. She showed up at Jake's on day 6. I saw her through the peephole, standing there with smeared mascara, holding one of my old hoodies like it was a relic. Jake stood behind me and said, "You sure you want to deal with this?" I nodded. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed the closure she'd never willingly give. I opened the door. She tried to smile. Said my name like it hurt. Tried to walk past me into the apartment like nothing had happened. I stopped her. Told her she could talk right there in the hallway. Her smile dropped. She said she missed me. Said she didn't realize what she had until it was gone. That Jason wasn't what she thought. That I was the real thing. That she panicked. I asked her one question, "Did you love him?" She didn't answer. She just looked down at her feet. That silence told me everything. I told her I didn't hate her. That I hoped she found whatever it was she was looking for. That she should keep the apartment. I didn't want it. I didn't want anything we touched together. She cried. Said I was too cold. That the man she fell for wouldn't just give up like this. But I wasn't giving up. I was letting go. And sometimes that's the only way to survive. After that last encounter in the hallway, I blocked her number. I deleted the old photos, erased our messages, and finally stopped checking her social media. It wasn't an instant cure. Healing doesn't happen in one dramatic breath. It's slow, clumsy, messy. Some mornings I still woke up reaching for her only to find an empty space and the ache of memory. But the difference was this: I didn't want her back. I just wanted peace. Jake's place became my cocoon. He gave me room to breathe. I found a new rhythm: quiet mornings, long walks, pouring myself into work like a man possessed. I started freelancing more, taking on projects I'd put off when I was too busy trying to impress her. I wasn't rich, not even close, but for the first time in months, my money was mine. Every dollar I saved, every meal I made, every bill I paid, it felt like a small rebellion. A quiet reclaiming of everything she took from me. One night, I went to a coffee shop alone. Not because I was meeting someone. Not because I was hoping to bump into fate. Just because I wanted to sit in a place and feel unbothered. I brought a notebook and started writing again. It had been years. The words poured out: grief, rage, clarity. I didn't try to make sense of it. I just let it happen. And that's when it hit me: I had survived her. Not just the betrayal. Not just the lies. But the way she made me feel small, unworthy, replaceable. I wasn't those things. I never was. I had just loved the wrong person too hard, for too long, without boundaries. And that wasn't weakness. That was hope. A few weeks later, I ran into someone I used to know. Lauren. She worked at the same co-working space I used to rent a desk in. We talked. Laughed. She didn't ask about Emily. I didn't bring her up. We talked about books, bad coffee, freelance hustle. It was easy. Unforced. She smiled at me, not the way Emily used to smile when she wanted something, but the way someone smiles when they actually see you. I'm not saying Lauren saved me. This isn't that kind of story. But she reminded me that there are people who don't take love like a loan. Who show up without agendas. Who listen when you speak and mean it when they say they care. That night, I went home, lay in bed, and stared at the ceiling. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't miss her. I never saw Emily again after that night in Jake's hallway. Occasionally, her name would pop up through mutual acquaintances, whispered in some detached context: she's seeing someone new, or she moved to the West Coast. I never asked. I didn't need to know. The chapter was closed, the ink dry. Whatever she was chasing, I hoped she found it. And if she didn't, well, that was no longer my burden to carry. But what she left behind stayed with me longer than I expected. The insecurity. The doubt. The constant urge to prove my worth to people who couldn't see it. I spent so much of that relationship performing, pretending, overgiving, just to keep someone who had already decided I wasn't enough unless I had more. More money. More status. More flash. And when I ran out of those things, she ran too. Looking back now, I realized that she never loved me, only the potential of me. The illusion of success, of upward mobility, of security she didn't have to build herself. And when the mask slipped, when she saw the struggle beneath the surface, the real man behind the rented watch and the carefully presented image, she didn't flinch because she was shocked, she flinched because she was bored. That truth hurt more than any affair. But here's what I've learned: betrayal doesn't destroy you. It reveals you. It forces you to confront the parts of yourself you gave away too easily, the boundaries you let slide, the dignity you shelved to keep the peace. It strips you down, yes, but it also shows you what's worth rebuilding. Now, I live differently. I don't chase validation through things. I don't hand out trust like it's candy. I don't fall for the kind of love that asks me to perform instead of exist. And when I feel the old wounds flare up, the ones that whisper, "You weren't enough," I remind myself that being left by someone who couldn't see my value says more about them than it ever did about me. And if you're reading this, if you've been through something similar, know this. You weren't crazy. You weren't too much. You weren't a fool for believing in love. You just gave your heart to someone who didn't deserve the weight of it. And now, like me, you get to take it back. Piece by piece. Step by step. And someday soon, you'll look at the wreckage not with bitterness, but with gratitude. Because even betrayal, when survived, becomes the beginning of something stronger. Of someone stronger. You.